Yo, YouTube, what's up with your boy, Sports and Fitness Rants? I'm back, guys. Click that like button. Subscribe to my channel. What's up, y'all? Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Got another great video for you guys today, as usual. You guys know the deal on this channel. We must continue to set the record straight, stop the lies, stop the narratives. We must continue to stop them from rewriting the history. And in this video, we're going to talk about We Done With the 90s, the load managing edition. That's right, guys. If you guys remember, I did some of these We Done With the 90s videos. I did a We Done With the 90s specialist video. I did a We Done With the 90s All-Star Game edition video. I did a We Done With the 90s Dream Team edition video. And this one, we're going to do a We Done With the 90s, the load management edition. And I want to explain to you guys load managing and how it was done, or how guys took quote-unquote rest in previous eras, the eras that I grew up watching, the 80s and the 90s, guys. We're going to talk about in this video. And I want to thank you guys, everyone across the world, everyone across the states has been supporting my channel, guys. I am truly humbled by all the support, man. For real, guys. It means a lot. You guys standing up with me. You guys rolling with me. You guys know the deal on this channel, man. All the support, everyone in the membership, you guys donating to my channel, you guys coming through the live streams, you guys hit me with the super things, you guys coming through with the super chats. Like I said, guys, I'm truly humbled, man, by all support. For real, guys. We must continue to stand up. And you guys know what to do, man. Turn the volume all the way up. Hit that play button. Remember, these videos are for educational purposes. And let's roll. So, yes, guys, like I said, man, we're going to do a We Done With the 90s. This is the load managing edition. The load managing edition, guys. Now, it's not going to be a long video. So, in this video, what I wanted to get across, or I want people to understand, is how load managing, or quote-unquote load managing, was done back in the 80s and the 90s, when I grew up watching the basketball, how guys got quote-unquote rest, how you got your rest. Because there was no quote-unquote load managing back in them days, right? That was never a saying. I never remember hearing that term. That term came in more about the mid-2000s, right? With the San Antonio Spurs, Greg Popovich, and the San Antonio Spurs organization, they were really the first ones to introduce quote-unquote load managing. However, I've told you guys in past videos, they did not abuse it. What they did was a tactic due to the fact that the San Antonio Spurs were always making deep playoff runs in those early 2000s, right? All throughout the 2000s, the San Antonio Spurs every single season were in the postseason, and they were going and making deep postseason runs, whether they were going to the NBA Finals or they were going to the Western Conference Finals, whatever the case may be. So during the regular season, Greg Popovich decided to rest guys like Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili every once in a while. However, once again, this was not these guys playing 50, 55 games or 60 games. These guys were still playing 70, 75, 80 games, right? So it wasn't load managing to the degree it is now. Also, it wasn't like they were resting Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker all the time together. Maybe they would sit Tim Duncan one game, and then the next game, they would sit maybe Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, maybe on the back end of or the front of a back-to-back, whatever the case may be, right? So it was not hurting the NBA. So we think about that. Now, let's think about the 80s and 90s. When I grew up watching basketball, how did guys get quote-unquote rest? How did you get rest? Well, quite simply, you got rest when you checked out of the game, right? That's obvious, right? You got rest when you came out of the game. These guys would get breathers. This is why I always told you guys, this is how Scottie Pippen helped in Michael Jordan, right? That was the main thing. It allowed Michael Jordan to get checked out of the game and not have to worry about the game getting out of hand. Because before guys like Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and the Paxtons, and the B.J. Armstrongs, and these guys started to develop and help Michael Jordan would come out of a game, the Bulls are up by 1 or 2, or they're down by 2. Next thing you know, they're down by 20. They're down by 10. They're down by 12. They're down by 8. Right? He really couldn't come out of the game too long, or the game would get out of hand. There was no one there to support Michael Jordan that way. This was Scottie Pippen allowed, or one of the things Scottie Pippen allowed Michael Jordan to do was to take those rests. Right? So that's one way. But when we talk about resting overall in a season, how did guys get rest? One of the ways that I remember, guys, that players, the star players, would get rest, right? Load managed, so to speak, was how? By beating down the teams that you were supposed to beat down. So, for example, if Larry Bird and the 86 Celtics are playing against one of the lowly teams in the league, the San Diego Clippers or the LA Clippers, right? And they're coming to play this team. What guys like Larry Bird and, and guys of that stats, what they would do is they would want to beat these teams down, right? Put them away early and then check themselves out of the game. That's how you rested. That's how you load manage, so to speak, on or during a regular season back in them days. You beat down the teams that you were supposed to beat down because you were a great team. You handled your business in the third quarter, the first half, whatever the case may be. You built up a sizable lead. So now in the fourth quarter, you can load manage. You can rest. These guys were not staying in the game to stat pad. That's why it's ironic, or excuse me, it's hypocrisy what they're doing. They'll load manage on a game, right? They won't even play the game, no injury, nothing hurting them. They'll just sit out the game. But then there's games that these guys will play that their team is up 20 points and they're still in the game. It doesn't make any sense. If you're worried about these guys getting hurt, you're worried about their quote-unquote load, then why the hell are they in the game up 20, up 15 in the fourth quarter? Why? Because all that matters now is the stats. And this is why these guys load manage. Once again, think about this, guys. Is it easier to average 30 points a game when you're playing 82 games? Or is it easier to average 30 points a game when you're playing 60 games? Think about that, guys. It's a lot harder to average 30 for 82 games than it is for 60 games or 55 games or even 65 games. It's a huge difference, guys. Huge difference. This is why I do not respect a lot of these guys in their, scoring titles or their rebounding titles or their assist titles because they're playing barely any amount of games. They're playing 55, 60 games. And then the game, this is why the NBA came with a minimum requirement. And to me, the 65 games is too low. It should have been 70 games, I said. Some of you guys have told me you think it should be 75. I don't disagree with that. But to me, the minimum should have been at least 70, man. That puts these guys right in that standard. It holds them accountable. These days, they low manage in a game, and then the very next game, their team is up by 20 in the fourth quarter, but they're still out there playing. What's the difference then? Or your team is down by 20 and you're still there in the fourth quarter with 5 minutes to go, chucking up shots, collecting stats. This is why we don't respect these fools. And this is where they get exposed for abusing the load management. And when I tell you that guys would take rest, that's how you load manage back in the day. That's how you would get rest back in them days. You came in and played the team and you beat the team you were supposed to beat. You built up a sizable lead. And now the second string guys, right, the bench players were allowed to come in now, and you were allowed to sit on the bench and rest. That's how you got your rest. That's how you got the rest. You didn't miss games and be like, oh, man, the Boston Celtics are coming in. I'm going to sit this game out. Right? Jerry West wasn't like, oh, man, we got to play the Celtics again? I'm going to sit this game out, man. I don't want to play against Bill Russell and Havlicek and Kuzi and Jones and Heinsohn and Sharman. I don't want to go against those guys. Right? Elgin Baylor wasn't ducking out on these teams. No, they played. They showed up to work. And once again, I told you, when these guys were up 20 points or whatever it was in the fourth quarter, they're winning the game handedly. These guys did not stay in the game to collect their stats. They checked themselves out of the games. This is what they did. The numbers were not important. They had to win. That was always important. They won the game. The game was in hand. Now the other guys could come in and get their playing time. These guys could rest on the bench. That's how you rested. There were games like that. Maybe it was the other way around. Maybe they were getting beat down by a bunch of points, right? And the guys came out with the last 7 or 8 minutes in the game. They checked the guys out and were like, hey, man, we lost this game, man. We'll come back strong the next one. And these guys would rest at the end of the game. They would come out those games. I told you many, many times, Michael Jordan would have 40 points, 39 points, 49 points. He could have went for 50, maybe went for 60, whatever the case may be. But the Bulls were winning handily, and he checked himself out. Right? Phil Jackson took out Michael Jordan. He didn't cry and complain and be like, no, man, keep me in here, Phil. I'm going to try to get this 40 real quick. No! That's how these guys played the game. That's called class. That's called integrity. That's called respecting the game. These guys today, they don't respect the game. This is why they load manage the way that they do. They're only thinking about themselves, their stats, their brand. These guys don't want to get injured, but yet they're chasing stats. They're sitting out against certain teams to play against the weaker teams. Meanwhile, when I was growing up, it was a complete opposite. Go look in the history of Michael Jordan. I've done a video on this, guys. If you go back and you look at the history of Michael Jordan, his biggest scoring games, some of his greatest games are against the greatest competition. Look how many 40, 50-point games he had against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the late 80s and the early 90s. They were one of the best defensive teams at that time, guys. The 89 Cavaliers, they were like a number 2 defensive team in the league. The Cavaliers in 90, in 91, 92, they were always good. 88, they were good. Well-coached teams with a bunch of solid players on those teams. Look at all the times that Michael Jordan dropped 40 and 50 against the Detroit Pistons defense. He scored 63 against the Boston Celtics in 86, who were the number 1 defensive team in the league that season. He didn't score 63 against some bum team. He was being guarded by Dennis Johnson, guys like Danny Ainge, right? With help defense by guys like Parrish, McHale, Larry Bird. Like, Mike, what are we talking about here? Michael Jordan never stayed in or stat pad against weak teams. He didn't put up 50, 60-point games against weak teams. More often than not, Michael Jordan raised his play against the better teams. True competitors want to play and show out against the better teams. Right? I told you, the great players bring out the best in each other. But meanwhile, in this era, they're dunking against each other. Oh, no, I'm not going to play against this guy. I'm going to sit out and play against this team, and then maybe I can get my 50 points. That's all it's about for these guys now. So, yes, guys, I don't want to go too long in this video, but listen, once again, man, we done with the 90s. When you hear people say we done with the 90s, and we talk about the load managing edition, when guys, quote-unquote, rested or load managed back in the day, like I said, they didn't say it called load managing, and they never set out games like that. What they did was they rested by beating down the teams they were supposed to beat. Right? If they were a good team, you pummeled the teams that you were supposed to pummel so you could check yourself out, so you could rest for the fourth quarter, or whatever the case may be. Guys today, no, they don't do that. Their team's up 20, the game is in hand, they're still in there clicking stats, still in there getting assists and rebounds. It's a joke, guys. So I respect the numbers. The numbers don't mean anything anymore in this era. It means nothing. All we want to see is guys be true competitors, give the effort, play with a love of the game, man. Show up to work. That's all we're asking for. My God. You guys know the deal, man. Remember, guys, back in the day, guys checked themselves out. That's how they got rest. They played the games, and their team was up. The game was good. These guys came out these games. They didn't stay in those games. Meanwhile, now they'll rest one game for no reason, and then the next game their team will be up 20 or down 20, and they're still there in the game, shooting, doing all kinds of nonsense. So what are we doing here? Exposed. They've been exposed, guys. They're not living up to the standards. And this is why we must continue to set the record straight and hold them to that standard. You guys know the deal, man. I'll catch you guys on the next one.